I want to speak tonight about Daniel. Daniel, the man of discipline. In the year 626, the superpower that dominated the Middle East was Assyria, with the capital being Nineveh. In 612 BC, Babylon overthrew Nineveh, and Daniel was born in the year 621. It was the time when King Josiah was on the throne in Israel, and he was bringing about his reforms. So Daniel would have been 9 years old when Nineveh was overthrown. He was to become a prophet and a statesman. 605 BC, Nebuchadnezzar subdued Jerusalem, and Daniel was among those taken captive to Babylon. He was 16 years of age, and he was to minister in Babylon for the full duration of the captivity. In fact, he continued after the Medes and Persians overthrew Babylon in 539 BC, right through until the third year of King Cyrus. Daniel is one of the few characters in the Bible about whom nothing negative is ever written. His life is characterized by faith, by prayer, by courage, by consistency, and by a lack of compromise. He was born into a noble family. His home enjoyed a godly atmosphere, a fine start to life. Coupled with his own firm faith in God, all of this helped to make him the man he was and the success he was to become. One of the first things, the finest things anyone can have, is a godly upbringing. Daniel faced two great tests of faith in his life. The first as a young man, and the second as a successful older man. His first test came at 16. Daniel's peaceful home life was rudely shattered by the invading Babylonians. They took him prisoner and deported him to Babylon. He was a young man in the big bad capital of the world, and no one cared a fig for Jewish morality or standards. The temptation to break out, the pressure to have a good time would have been enormous. This was to be the proving ground of his character and integrity. Daniel was selected as one of those to receive special education and training for 3 years before entering the royal service of the king. The first big test came on whether he would eat the diet of the Babylonians. A good Jew, for instance, would never eat pork or food containing blood. In Babylon, they had no such scruples. They ate and drank as they pleased. And what's more, all this amazing food was laid on by the king. Would Daniel just go along with it? Perhaps I should ask you, what are you feeding on? Oh, I don't mean tucking into your cornflakes or your beef steaks or your McDonald's. I'm talking about, what do we feed our minds and our spirits on? That is very important. We need to be discerning. We need to filter what we allow through. And to take a stand can often be costly. Daniel took a stand on this one in his early life. Don't underestimate the influence of friends. You and I influence one another, and we can encourage or discourage, we can inspire or deflate. Daniel had 3 godly friends who at this time stood with him and helped him to stand. So choose friends that inspire you to be more like Jesus and that help you to follow him and to grow in your faith. Daniel had resolved. He made his mind up ahead of time. He arrived at a place of decision and committed will. Do you ever think through possible situations ahead? Daniel had. What would he do when he was being asked to conform to the eating habits of the Babylonians? I can remember in my motorcycling days setting myself little problems. It shows that I was in need of help, doesn't it? Such as, what would I do if I came round a corner and met someone coming on my side of the road? Perhaps you never think of things like that. Well, one day it happened when I was travelling very quickly on my motorcycle, coming out of a corner. As I straightened up, there was a car right in front of me on my side of the road. And I was able to take instinctive action, and it possibly contributed to saving my life. Look ahead as a Christian and decide how you would act in certain situations. What if somebody says this to you, or you're put under pressure to do that? It could make all the difference in the day of testing. God backed him up. God gave him and his 3 friends an understanding tutor in this matter of conforming to the Babylonian diet, a tutor who was willing to let them prove their point by eating only kosher food, and God honoured their stand. Later in life, when Daniel was established, he enjoyed promotion, the king's favour, he got a good job, good position, life was wonderful, but jealous rivals laid a trap for him. They persuaded the king to make this decree. I'm reading from Daniel chapter 6, verse 7. Whoever makes petition to any god or man except for 30 days, except to you, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions. No one could fault Daniel in his work or his integrity. He was above reproach. No one could bribe Daniel. He was as straight as a die. There was only one place that his enemies could get him, and that was his loyalty to God. His loyalty to God came before his devotion to duty. Daniel had to choose between his allegiance to God and his career and possibly his life. Guess what? Love for God won. We might have been tempted to compromise. Well, we can always worship God discreetly. It's only 30 days. Not Daniel. He openly chose God in defiance of the king's edict. Romans 12 verse 2, don't conform any longer to the pattern of this world. Daniel chose God. He risked everything. He preferred the God who created the lions than the king who fed them. And it seemed occasionally starved them as well. God stood by him. He vindicated him and delivered him. But if that wasn't going to happen, Daniel was prepared to die. His relationship with God had convinced him where true power lay. A man who fears God need fear no other. Daniel received revelation to predict the future, to resolve affairs of state, to declare history before it happened. In fact, chapters 7 through to 12 are taken up with visions and dreams relating to end-time events, to the Lord's return. In other words, they are relevant to the days we are living in now. Daniel proved to be a man of courage and a man of faith. Like the old hymn says, dare to be a Daniel, dare to stand alone, dare to have a purpose firm, and dare to make it known. The Lord bless you and help you and me to be like Daniel. Amen.